welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another bullet journaling setup video. So this one's actually quite special because this is the last month in my book and the last month of my entire year of my first attempt at aesthetic, quote-unquote, bullet journaling. This is technically my second year bullet journaling, but my first year was very basic, just learning the absolute basics. And finishing up this setup and pretty much filling out the rest of the book just so that I'm ahead made me very nostalgic. But at the same time, I wanted to keep up the aesthetics, but also keep it as simple as humanly possible because September is the beginning of my extremely busy time. This time last year, it was setting up for my night before Halloween stuff with my other channel. Just know that this one is very special because it's a mix of simple, so literally anybody can do it. It's not drawing based, except for obviously the cover photo that you saw in the thumbnail, but anybody can do it as long as you have some fun, funky paper. I hope you guys like it and maybe will want to try it out for yourself. So with that all being said, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so cracking right into my quote page first, I decided to really vamp up my cover and quote page to be similar to what I did in my February plan with me, and I used Prima's Autumn Sunset collection line for this entire setup, which is also some papers you'll see behind my actual book, but I'll go more into their line a little bit later in this. But I wanted to talk about why I decided to pick this quote specifically. As you've seen in my other setups, if you've seen the other ones, I guess, since, you know, channel's still pretty small. But anyway, I digress, getting off topic. I was getting really reflective when I started making this setup, and I realized that even though every setup has taken me a long time to do, because I was challenging myself each time to draw more intense photos every month, and some months I failed at it, and some months I feel like I really exceeded at it. But looking overall, instead of just focusing on what I was doing in that moment, I really realized that, you know what, I can call myself successful this year. Not in the way that I thought I was going to end up successful, because I mean, a lot of people's plans got canceled because of this whole pandemic thing, right? And including mine for a second time. I mean, going to Japan was supposed to be this life-changing thing that was supposed to happen 2 years ago, and now it's still not happening. So third time's the charm. But overall, not every other, but a lot of my other goals that I've tried to achieve over the past year when it first got canceled before the COVID thing happened, I feel like I've really progressed and been successful with my goal, especially with drawing and bullet journaling. So if you guys are heading for a goal, just know that once you look back on it after like literally just a full year of just doing it every day or every second day, or just making sure that you make a habit of practicing whatever it is you want to get better at, you will get better even if it feels like you're not. You have to look at this sounds totally corny, but just the journey instead of just the end result. And I guess that's really with anything. So I decided that for this month, the only thing that I would really push myself with is this drawing. And it wasn't as much of a push as like last month. Last month was a whole nother ball game, but it felt really good to not feel so frustrated with my drawings anymore. Like, this didn't take me nearly as long as previous drawings from the very beginning of this year. So as the quote says, it really is not overnight. Your success will not happen right away. Anybody that you see that you look up to that is quote-unquote successful to you, they spent years working on whatever they wanted to work on. I mean, a great example is Lin-Manuel Miranda. I probably don't need to say this, but you know, the creator of Hamilton, one of the best musicals of all time. Oh, that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. Maybe I'll do a Hamilton setup one day. We'll see. But I think he worked on Hamilton for 5 years. And it was just every day building it. But prior to even doing Hamilton, he worked on In the Heights, and I don't even know how long that that took him. I haven't even watched that one yet. But the point is that he worked as an actor for years before he even worked on Hamilton. Like, it was a huge progression, and like, look where he is now. That's the accumulation of years and years of hard work and going for it, right? So I use people like him as an inspiration to do this kind of stuff and to really push myself. And I mean, this past month has been quite hard for motivation, I'm not gonna lie, because I was starting to feel like I'm going nowhere and I'm not making any progress. But then, you know, again, reiterating my point, looking at the overall picture of how far I've come when I first decided to pursue YouTube, first decided to draw, first decided to really work on my modeling and acting, like it's been a total of 3 years altogether of everything that I've just listed of going for. And yeah, I'm not where I want to be yet, but I look back at all of that and where I started, and I can see that I've improved. And if you, as long as you're improving, and even if small improvements, even if it's tiny and to you it's like nothing, but I guarantee to either your friends or family that are looking at you and thinking, wow, they've really improved, they've really shown their passion about whatever they're doing. And as long as you keep doing that, you will get there. So yeah, I think I just ranted about that for like 5 minutes. Didn't think that was gonna take that turn. But yeah, so talking about this specific drawing, why I choose this before it's completely done. And actually, you know what, before I go into that, I gotta point out that I accidentally drew over the eyebrow and then I screwed up. So then I was like, hey, what do I do? So I ended up using this scrap piece of paper on both eyebrows to just glue them back on so he looked like he actually had eyebrows. So when in doubt, use paper. So yeah, I chose that drawing because I did a similar drawing in April of a tiger from that same artist that did this one, and I really wanted to do a cute little fox, so I thought that stuck with the Prima theme and still wanted to challenge myself with drawing, right? So that's why I chose that. So I decided to glue everything down with my fabric tack. I use it for all of my scrapbooking, and it really knocks everything down compared to just a regular glue stick. I wanted to put some washi tape in the middle, but it just wasn't working, so I decided to leave it until maybe I found something else. So moving on to my schedule page. So this overall did not take me nearly as long as obviously drawing, because that took a few days in between having to work at my job. But this is a lot simpler than my previous month and took a lot less time despite having to fiddle around with a lot of the papers and clip arts. But I kept with a simple calendar layout and used the same structure as I've done with my November, October, and March plan with me, just to name a few off the top of my head. Just a standard 6x6 dot calendar spread. Oh, and also with the font that I used for the days of the week, that's the same font that I used for the majority of the quote. I can't think of the name of the font off the top of my head during this voiceover, but I will leave the link to download it, or at least type in whatever word you want to copy that I use for most of my setups, so that I can have like pretty aesthetic fonts, because Lord knows I can't draw that freehand. So I'll do the same with the September font that I used. And so I just fiddled with a bunch of the cutouts from this line. This line doesn't have too many papers, so there wasn't as much to choose from, but I just stuck with the rose gold tombos and then distressed some of the edges of this clip art with some pink to bring out more of that, because it was very orange already and I wanted some more of that pink, light pastel pink to peek through. Also, this washi tape that I'm using right now, that is from a different line. It's not a Prima line. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I will leave the link to purchase it in the description. The colors just worked phenomenal with this line, so I'm honestly surprised that Prima didn't come out with a washi tape that matched this line, but I'm glad I found this other stuff. So to add something extra, because I felt like it still looked pretty plain and there was nothing smaller in the collection that I could buy, I ended up remembering that I had this old punch out of butterflies. So I just used some scraps that I've already cut out and placed them around the word September and made sure it was different patterns of paper so it adds some extra kick and not look so plain. And this piece of the washi tape is still from the other two strips that you saw, but they were this outskirts of it, like the outside of the actual pullout, if that makes sense. But I thought it was thin enough to really work. And then I decided in the middle of this wreath on the left side, that is where I would put a very small YouTube symbol so I could have my growth tracker there. So moving on to my to-do list pages. This I wanted to keep simple as well, but I was starting to get used to using mostly the washi tape and these cutouts from the line, so I got a little bit carried away. So this page realistically took me longer than it really should have, but I had some fun playing around and figuring out how exactly I wanted it to look. Took a little bit to shift around this washi tape to really get the look I was trying to go for, because originally I thought it would be good to just have it like dead center, but then realizing which cutouts I wanted to use, I needed to make it look a little bit more asymmetrical to have a better look. So it's still kind of plain to me, so I got some more of these butterfly punch outs and used just the plaid side so that it wasn't all different pages, and just did a little doodles around them so you could see the trail that they were supposedly flying around. Continued to distress a little bit more of the other cutouts just to add some more dimension to it, I guess. And yeah, that's it for my to-do list page, basically. So moving on to my mood tracker first. I wanted to add in some more fall elements, even though I'll probably still be doing fall elements in November, but we'll see. I always see the maple tree that's in front of my house, like right in front of my bedroom window specifically, turn turn red almost immediately as soon as the end of August really rolls around. Like right now I'm looking at it and there's already a few leaves that are turning a bit of a more orangey right now, but they'll turn like bright red right away. And sometimes at the first week of September, there's just this one red leaf. I'll insert a picture that I took a couple of years back when I started noticing that it was doing that. But I thought, why not have the mood tracker be a giant maple leaf this time? I took this drawing from a different picture I found on Pinterest, so it is definitely not an original idea. I'm trying to get better at the original ideas, but who knows when I'll actually be able to start doing that. But I digress. So took a bit to sketch this out, but make sure when you're doing your mood trackers that you do count out your days in pencil first. Don't just go straight in with a pen, because if you're anything like me, you'll probably make a mistake and then you won't be able to fix it. So for the colors, I wanted to do a slight mix-up, but I still wanted to keep my happy days super pastel-y, because I've been noticing with my other mood trackers that I am having more happy days until it's, you know, that time of the month. So I do want my mood tracker to have more light colors, because I just prefer light colors. So moving on to my habit tracker, this very simple, just stuck with my all previous habits that I've been using for the past couple months. I added back in my Japanese lessons and my acting lessons, because both of those will be starting up again. Japanese lessons aren't technically until I move to Japan, or at least try to for the third time, which will be in April again. But the school messaged me and asked to start practicing with the app that they suggested downloading, and I've had that on my phone for a full year now, but I haven't really opened it because I was just trying to get over the fact that I had to cancel for the second time in a row, so it kind of just made me sad and not motivated to do it. But I figured September, you know what, just punch through it, even if it's just once a week, like make it into a habit, and then I can try my best to keep on top of it. Alright, so moving on to my weekly spread, which is my last spread for this setup. So you can see I didn't draw too much, but for inspiration pics that I was looking up on Pinterest before I really started this theme, I was seeing a lot of people do the scrappy craft paper look, and not too much with the decorative pages like I have, because these pages are, well, these papers I should say, are very thick because they're meant straight for scrapbooking, but I liked that people were using fancy paper like this and just ripping it up and gluing it into their book to make it look pretty without having to spend hours and hours on a spread, which I mean really is the whole point of bullet journaling. It's supposed to make your life easier, not more complicated. So if any of you are really starting bullet journaling and happen to land on this video and have reached this point in the video, please know that these aesthetic, quote unquote aesthetic books are from people who have been practicing art for a very long time, or at least a minimum a year like I have, you know? Like, it really does take a while to get the habit of, and I really only make my book look fancier than an average journal because it makes me happy and it honestly calms me down, and I wanted to, you know, challenge myself. But if you want to use your bullet journal just as a way of making your life simpler and easier to plan out your days, then do that. Just make it as bold and simple as you want. It's completely up to you. But if you do want to make it more aesthetic, I feel like this month's setup would be a really good basis to learn from, because there's barely, as you've seen, it's barely any drawing. It's just ripping up paper and gluing and testing out where you think it would look the best, but still obviously making room to actually write out your stuff. So that's why I sketched out in pencil all the days of the week. So this is actually my only spread, or my only weekly spread I should say, in my entire setup that has this big of gaps for each day, because normally I do like to only have one spread for the full 7 days of the week. But I was running out of paper in this book and I didn't want to have like 3 pages in a brand new book just for September. So I was like, hey, I'm just gonna have to squish. So that's why for the rest of my setups that you'll see on my Instagram if you decide to follow me, that they look a little bit more squished than normal, but you can definitely have them spaced out like this if you have the pages to do so. So I decided just to add some extra little doodles, and I should say before we end this video that I did base this off of a picture that I did see on Pinterest. I just added my own spin to it because of the paper and everything. So if you need help, feel free to go on Pinterest. There is a plethora of them. Alright, so that was my September 2020 bullet journal setup. I really enjoyed making this one, and I love how simplistic and fast it was, especially because this month, man, this is gonna be a very busy month, and I just needed something absolutely simple and fast to do to be able to catch up. So I can't wait to crack in and really utilize this month. That was my 2020 September bullet journal setup. Something very, very new and not really out of my comfort zone, I would say, just because it was more the mix of my scrapbooking techniques, but definitely a type of setup that I have never tried before, but I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was more relaxing than challenging this time, just because, you know, like I've said before, drawing is still very challenging for me. It was nice to just have a month to chill out and still feels more in my element. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next Scrappy Wednesday, because that, like I said, is the start of my busy month where I will actually be releasing more videos than I normally do on this channel. So I will see you guys next week. Bye!